Sweet Home Alabama, Jesus. She wants to do what with her sister? That is a blink and you miss it moment, but when you see all of their wishes, like their prayers, their wish on New Year's Eve, and you read, I want to do naughty things with my sister, and boldly have your name associated with that wish for the whole public to see. On one hand, it's not surprising, given the cis-con energy coming off of this buffoon, but that shook me. Up to this point, I think many people who have not been indoctrinated by the deer cult have said, what is wrong with this show, and how the hell are people accepting someone who claims she's a deer, and just all the BS that goes on with her, to exist? And within a couple of minutes of this episode, she became a god. Now, I am convinced she's Satan. My headcanon is, well, it's kind of a two-part. My headcanon is that, in terms of face value, she's actually the second coming of Satan. And she's here to destroy the world. And she will do so. My actual belief is that the end of this story's run, it will be it's all a dream, but it's going to have a bit of a twist. It's going to wake up with our MC with a needle in her arm, drugs and filth everywhere, and she OD'd, and this is what she imagined in her final moments. That's what I believe is actually happening with this show, but in terms of the show's front and center of what we see, she's Satan. But the fact that a shrine, the first day she goes over, just turns her into God, and how many times have I said that this feels like a cult? If this organized religion doesn't feel like a cult to you, I don't know what will. They're drinking antler soup, and if you've ever smelt a skull get boiled to just have like the bones and the antlers there, that shit smells nasty, and they be slopping that up like it's Kool-Aid. But then again, otherwise, how would they be dealing with this if they haven't been drinking the Kool-Aid? But seriously, why the hell does that girl want to bang her sister so bad? A full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thought to any of these deer episodes, you know it's going to be over there exclusively. So this was actually the easiest episode to stomach. So usually with each episode my brain melts, but I think I had a second wind. I feel like, you know, I'm still ready to fight, boss. Send me back into the ring. That's kind of how I felt. This was a very entertaining episode. You have the mixture of the Game of Life but Deer Edition on top of the Shrine Maiden BS. The fact that if you try to explain the whole idea that a girl who's a deer wants you to eat her, so then she pretends like she wasn't up there the whole time, and then she feeds you her liquid because she wants you to taste her antlers. You can't even explain that to people who watch this show, let alone people who've never set foot into the world of my dear friend Nokotan. But the fact that there's this image of her in like a cauldron, and she's like melting and bathing into it, and I'm like, do you know how bad that would smell? Do you know how bad that would taste? And the fact that people are acting like it tasted good? This is the greatest and worst show I've ever seen all in one. It's truly going to be a shame when it goes away, because there's going to be nothing like this for the foreseeable future. This is the most absurd gag idea that has no right to be as coherent as it is. But then to just so casually go into the Game of Life, which I've never played the Game of Life, but I've seen it, you know, mentioned and referenced in so many different pieces of media, that the overall idea of using the Game of Life, but Deer Edition, they have Pokemon evolutions. She evolved from a deer to a moose because that's the ultimate deer. And then there's like this grizzly that she ends, like, imagine playing the Game of Life, you roll, and it's like, oh, a bear attacks you, but because you evolved into Pokemon Moose, you tame the bear. They use deer crackers instead of currency. And at one point, RMC had, I think, 1.6 billion in deer crackers. And maybe it's because I don't play the Game of Life, but it's hard to imagine there would be penalties realistically in a Game of Life, because, like, not that I know they exist, but if you're thinking about it in a realistic sense, Even though she was exposed as being a fake deer, why would she have to pay all of, like, what is the, what, is it illegal in the world of deer to pretend not to be a deer so they bankrupt you? I don't quite understand. But what a freaking wild game. You have to hand it to them, though. They definitely have imaginations. And for, you know, an MC who was, like, very scared of being exposed to being a delinquent in her previous school, there's never really a lot of moments where she feels like a delinquent. For the most part, she feels like the most sane person in the room. But it was interesting when she was surrounded by all those deer crackers. She definitely looked like she was a delinquent back in that moment. And it was very funny. But, you know, at this point, I have 2 questions now that we are 8 episodes into My Dear Bullshit Nokotan. One is, for the love of God, someone needs to punch our deer friend. The number of deer puns I had to suffer in this episode, like, we need some hunters to go after her. She is Satan. There's no other way to put it. I have never loved and hated a character more than this. I am so glad she exists, but she is the second coming, not of Christ, but of Satan himself. And my second thought is, for the love of God, what is wrong with this sister? And what is in the water this season that we have so much incest? Like, did Alabama get a chokehold of the Japanese animation industry and just insert their family reunions? Like, what is going on? Is the reason I come back week after week because I've actually been indoctrinated into a deer cult? Probably. Am I gonna keep coming back week after week? Absolutely. If this ran for 1,000 episodes like One Piece, would I probably watch them all? Against my will, but probably. Anime of the century. But as I say, anime was a mistake. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode, though, down below. I want to do naughty thing. Something should be left in your head, and something should be destroyed in your head, but I digress. Thoughts down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout-out. Alright, so today we got Sign, Teeny Bopper, Ashleth, Nicholas Wilhelm, Vincent Granville, Francis Mondra, Brendan M. Gibbons, Neko Chibi, Jacob Darkfire, and we also have Min Young. So please take care, and y'all have a good one, and for the love of God, treat family like family. Don't be like the deer cult. That's all I'm saying.